Dr. Mehta, thank you so much for joining me. It is such an honor for me to interview a surgeon as senior as you. You've enjoyed an illustrious career over 5 decades. You've been awarded a Padma Bhushan this year as well in the field of medicine.
Yeah.
At almost 85,
Yes.
you're still going really strong. I can see, I've been here, I've been watching you. You're in surgeries, you're consulting,
Meetings.
all the time.
Administration,
Now,
yeah.
before we get to your fitness, tell me about your start.
Okay. Born out of a lower middle class couple.
Yeah.
My father was just a matriculate and he came down to Mumbai, and he was searching for a job. When he got a job in a solicitor's office, he was extremely hardworking, and I would consider him as my mentor because though he was matriculate, he would study while working in solicitor's office the law books at night when he's all alone by himself. And there was a time when there was an examination called advocate's examination, which was only for 1 or 2 years. He picked that opportunity up and he became a lawyer. And then he worked so very hard that he became a successful lawyer. And from a small little town from where he came, or even, not even a town, a village, and then he ultimately ended up becoming most outstanding lawyer in the Rentec. So in front of me this illustration. My early childhood was a little difficult because my father used to be a little short-tempered, and then his own frustrations out of actually I was not a planned child.
Yeah.
It came out in those days an outcome of a natural outcome of marriage.
Yes.
So not that, so in a way I added to his difficulties at that point of time, but he never showed that though, never expressed. But sometimes I realize that it does happen that the frustrations mount up. Anyway, I, coming from a Gujarati vernacular school, I finished my SSC examination at the age of 16, and then the 23, and then hardworking as I was, and then because I always believed the duty of a student is to study,
Yeah.
and that's why we have received a title called student. And then I secured multiple gold medals, and in fact at the university, when I finished my MD, the postgraduate examination in medicine, I had procured 17 gold medals.
Wow.
And people jocularly would say Dr. A.B. Mehta did not spare any medal, but he had no choice because there was one which was only reserved for lady students.
Oh gosh.
So, right.
Yeah.
And then I went to United States thereafter and studied the higher levels of cardiology, and then I came back here.
Yeah.
And the luck, the series of fortunate events did happen in my life,
Yeah.
and that gave me prominence. I do know that there are people who probably deserve a lot more than what I got in my life, but it's a matter of luck, as you might say that.
No, and also
And-
clearly hard work.
Huh. And Padma Bhushan I considered as a recognition of my services, an acknowledgement by the society that Dr. Mehta, you did your job well.
Yeah.
I don't consider this as a certificate of my accomplishment, and never make a mistake that you should consider that as your certificate of accomplishment, for the simple reason that here, look, Dr. Mehta, you have served the society well, morally, compassionately, keep it up. And don't you ever make mistakes now, because now that you have got this, don't allow your Padma Bhushan medal to get tarnished in any way. That's how I take in my spirit.
But Mr. Mehta, Dr. Mehta, that's interesting because doctors do make mistakes. They are human.
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself coming out and telling a patient's family that it was my error? Ever?
Right. That's a good question. When I'm doing a procedure and I'm dealing mainly with heart,
Yeah.
and any mishap that takes place straightway reflects to mortality. It's not like a knee joint says if you do wrong, the patient has a deformed walking and whatever it is, or if I do a mistake with the eye surgery, the patient may lose vision. But here, the patient may lose life. So, when such a thing happens, I get stressed. And my adrenaline surge in the body is very high. And my team also is alerted because we have to act fast and act in the right direction with the right thinking. A team member from my team will immediately go out and prepare the family. Things are not going well as Dr. Mehta had expected, and there have been certain mishaps, but Dr. Mehta is trying very hard to correct it. So that message goes, that little preparedness for them, because Devna, it's not so easy to come out and tell that your dear and near one is now no more. He says, we brought him to the hospital, he was alive, he was talking, and now that you give this news, and it did happen to me, and it would happen, I'm sure it could have happened in any doctor and many doctors, especially those who are dealing with a high-risk profession like heart surgery involved. And this has happened. And it does disturb you emotionally and dampen your spirit also for a little while, but then you get over it.
Are some of the key firsts that you would say, which have gone on to sort of shape the way surgeries are being done?
I'm one of the first ones in the country to start angiography. Angiography is a roadmap, and that tells you the blocks severity, extent, and number of blocks. They decide two things: the future of the patient and which pathway is appropriate, surgery, medicine, or angioplasty now. So angiography was introduced to this country. I was one of the I'm not necessarily the first one, but one of the first ones. That did happen and erupted at a few other centers also simultaneously. Similarly, angioplasty. I was one of the very early ones. Nowadays, the best treatment of a heart attack is to get the patient as early as possible and open up the blocked artery, which is the major cause for a heart attack. And that gives them, and when you restore the blood supply to a blocked artery, the recovery from heart attack is very fast, survival rates are better. I was one of the early ones to start that. In 2002, now we use the stents. It's a common knowledge that doctors keep on using stent for a blocked artery. The drug-eluting stent gives a long durability of that stent. And I was the first one in the entire country to introduce in 2002. Amazing. So this gives me a sense of gratification that my contribution to the art and science of medicine,
yes, has been substantial. Doctor, but the statistics of heart are quite scary in India. I was reading somewhere, some research reports that over 35 lakh Indians die of heart disease a year. Is that an accurate figure?
Probably underestimation, because not many heart attacks get reported. So probably an underestimation. But I can tell you one thing, Devna, that it's a number one killer even between the age of 40 and 50 if you exclude the accidents. If you exclude the accidents, the number one killer between the age of 40 and 50, even that. And later
for heart
is
attack.
For sure. Yeah.
But this number one killer in the age of 40 to 50, has that come about in the last 10 years? Because that wasn't the case before.
Of course, Devna, you're right. It's not only an impression, it's a well-established fact that over a period of time, we see lots and lots of people in young age becoming victim of this disastrous disease, which it comes like a bolt from the blue and completely racks and ruins the family.
What are some of the conditions that contribute to heart disease?
Yeah. I think if we were to divide them, the treatable and non-treatable, let's talk of treatable very quickly. Hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, excess of weight, and to some extent even stress are generally hypertension. These are generally treatable. We can control them, we can modify them, we can make them favorable, we can postpone the heart disease, if not prevent completely. But there are two factors which are not correctable. One is age Second is family history. One very important one is that when you see a patient between the age of 40 and 50 coming with a heart attack, two constant major determinants or the predisposing factors are smoking and family history.
Okay.
This, in my eyes, they strike as number one and two important factors.
When you say smoking, you mean like people who smoke a pack a day or 4-5 cigarettes a day? Like, how do you define that?
Well, so scientifically, anyone who smokes less than 5 cigarettes a day can be classified from the risk point of view as a non-smoker.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But do they stop at 5 cigarettes? They can't. Once you are in possession of a cigarette, 5 becomes 6 and 6 becomes 20.
Now, may I ask about genetic disposition? Okay. If someone is leading an extremely healthy lifestyle,
True.
but they have a genetic disposition, what is their likelihood then to have heart issues?
Okay, I might have to digress and you answer your question in a little different way.
Yeah.
I think counseling of marriage. So, for example, I'll tell you my own example. My own daughter, when she became of a marriageable age, and she said that, Papa, I'm ready to find out accept your choice. So then when I came to know a good boy with a very strong family history of heart disease, I was a little disappointed to accept the proposition. And similarly, we do a counseling. If both the couple, the boy and the girl, both, if there's a strong family history on either side, there are very high chances that the progeny or the family will also have a very, very high possibility of developing heart disease. So marriage counseling is equally important.
Right.
That we don't allow it to multiply. Genetic multiplication should not happen that way. Number two, that yes, people who have a family history which I can't control, there the risk factor control should be stricter, as strict as possible. Like cholesterol level as low as it is therapeutically determined for absolutely uninterrupted period. So like for him, control of LDL cholesterol is its own lifestyle and not the treatment. Don't eat wrong food. Keep your cholesterol under control. Keep on checking it periodically and make sure, be fastidious about it. That's
Right.
what I would say.
What are the regular checks that you should do for the heart? Post 40.
Surprising. Very good question, Devla. I think so many people ask me at what stage we should undergo checking.
Yeah.
When I was in United States, I was involved in a research of school-going boys and girls. And in Chicago, 14% of the children were obese. 16% of the children had cholesterol level of 300 and above.
My goodness. And what
So,
age?
16 to the school-going boys and girls were around 14 to 18.
But that's also quite prevalent in the US.
It is
Obesity.
prevalent. Maybe
Yes.
diet, maybe
Yes.
genetic, maybe
Yeah.
whatever it may be, environment, whatever it is. Potato couch syndrome, we call it, that kind of the junk food,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. But the fact is that it remains undetected because you don't pay attention and you feel too young. When Vietnam War, it took place, it is compulsory, the man died in war, he has to compulsorily undergo autopsy. And they found between the 23 and 30, those soldiers who died, when their coronaries were dissected, there were blocks, streaks of blocks early. So that meant the coronary disease and the blocking formation starts much earlier than you and I think. I would say 2025.
Really?
Yeah,
As
might
early as
not be as frequently as that 1 yearly or 6 monthly, but at least once in 2-3 years.
Do one check between 20 and 25.
Of course, I would do. I would say so.
And if someone is genetically disposed, do it more regularly,
frequent.
even in your 20s.
Absolutely.
Okay. What would you recommend on the food front for a healthy heart?
So I personally would say that a good lifestyle and the natural behavior of ours would be to be a vegetarian all throughout our life.
Yeah.
Non-veg is not a good food. Now, out of the entire lipid pattern, the cholesterol, low density lipoprotein cholesterol, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, triglycerides, apolipoproteins, and so on and so forth, of which the most easily controllable and the most important one is LDL cholesterol. So monosaturated or polyunsaturated oils are good. Olive oil, till oil, etc. are good. But can I tell you something very interesting, Devana? Only 15% of the cholesterol is contributed in the blood by diet.
Right.
Only 15% is contribution of the food. The remaining is the liver's inability to handle LDL cholesterol load. So whosoever it is, despite dieting, continues to keep high cholesterol level, I will not hesitate to use statins. Many doctors have come to conclusion and believe strongly that contribution of LDL in creation of blocks and coronary disease is significant, and therefore the use of statin should be liberal and is liberal.
Okay. Are men more prone to heart attacks than women? Is that actually true?
All right. It's a good question. When the people who get the chest pain for the first time in their life, most of the time, who report very late to the hospital?
Women.
Women and youngsters.
Yeah.
Because they both feel, how can we be getting heart attack? But that's not true. It's a myth. Yeah, it is true that during the childbearing period, that means from the onset of menstruation and till menopause, yes, the heart diseases were considered to be 8 times more common in men than in women.
Because the hormones of women protect them.
Probably. We precisely we do not know, because when we gave female hormones to men, that they lost their beard and developed breast, but heart attack continued. Yeah. But after menopause,
yeah,
I think the difference is decreasing, and by about the age of 60, it is 1-to-1.
It's 1-to-1.
1-to-1.
So it means 60 for men and women.
Yes.
Okay. Why the risk factors? Why have they gone up for women? More women are getting heart attacks in the last 10 years?
As compared to, yes.
As compared to before?
Yeah. But surprisingly, it hurts me, and it college-going girls are indulging into smoking, which
so you're saying more women smoke than ever before,
yeah,
and that's one of the contributing
true.
factors.
But fortunately, I think the smoking is gradually going down because of campaign by the government, advertisements, announcements, etc. People are realizing. So
you're finding that
down
in both rural and urban India now?
Yeah, it is reducing for sure.
The
for sure.
number of smokers reducing. What is the first sign? What is the biggest sign of a heart attack?
That's a very good question.
See, because there are a lot of people who get anxiety as well, right?
Yeah.
And
true.
sometimes when you're deeply in the middle of an anxiety attack and you're panicking, it feels like a heart attack, right? Like the heart flutter. So how do you distinguish what is the biggest sign, the giveaway?
It's a very important and very good question. If a man who is in 40s and 50s, in between, or for that matter even a lady also, when for the first time develops unexplained discomfort in the chest of any type or upper abdomen, should arouse a suspicion. It may be that you wake up everybody that I'm getting a heart attack. Maybe it's a false alarm. Maybe. And you go to the hospital and the doctor says that there is nothing wrong with you. Go back home and get your sleep back. Maybe true. But I will still feel, cry wolf.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Let the doctor and everybody be harassed and this, but do not neglect.
But you're saying chest pain.
Chest discomfort. Now, that the people has a false belief that it should be a very severe crushing pain, and this is all only in movies. It is in real life, the pain may be much milder and the heart attack may be very severe. It does happen, and sometimes mild heart discomfort in the chest or a little compression on the chest with a little radiation into arms or jaw, especially jaw. Because I do not know of any other medical condition, barring probably sometimes of a reflux esophagitis or a burning, let me say, high acidity. The jaw pain is only and only a strong indication for heart, the cause of pain being heart.
Okay.
So these are the warning signs, and I think my basic message to the people: do not neglect, howsoever minor it might look. Just go and visit a doctor.
And the regular tests, let's say annually or twice a year, let's say post 40, would be what? CT angio, calcium score, like what should you check annually?
Devna, there are two diseases which keep on existing in you without your knowledge and playing a real wreck. And these are diabetes and hypertension. They remain silent, may remain without any symptoms, without your knowledge. And let's say you decide to go for your insurance examination, for your insurance, and doctor tells you that you have diabetes and hypertension or hypertension, so on and so forth. So these two should be by physical checkup.
Right.
Diabetes by blood sugar. But I would say if I have to do a full checkup of my body, complete body checkup would include the exercise test, the ECG, the blood test like test for diabetes, and complete cholesterol profile. And this should, I think, cover up for the heart.
There's a lot of talk now. We've seen so much happen in the last decade where people say, oh, this guy, he passed away. He was in his early 40s. He had a great lifestyle, didn't drink, didn't smoke, slept early, exercised regularly. And he played squash and then he passed away.
Yeah.
What is happening? Is that stress?
This is...
Is it over-exercise? What's the relationship between exercise and heart attacks? Because by virtue of cardio, doesn't it actually help your heart pump better?
Your question is very, very important. And believe me, the medical fraternity also is at a distress because it's a little bit enigmatic. Why? Because we are unable to be able to weed out those people who are at a very high risk of sudden cardiac death. Is that your question meant? Yeah,
Also,
sudden cardiac death, right?
Sudden
Yeah.
cardiac death in young.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why it happens. Whenever the block is less than 70% in the artery, the flow limitation is mild and it still can be compensated by the various mechanisms built in within the body. Okay. So such a patient does not have symptoms and he does not find a need to go to a doctor, and even doctor does simple tests like ECG and stress tests and all may fail to pick up because it's not flow limiting obstruction. So it's still they fail to pick up. Now, they have a soft block. Some of these soft blocks, when subjected to very high stress, physical stress, when you do a massive exercise, both blood pressure and the pulse rate, they go up very rapidly, too high. And that causes the rupture of that block. And when it ruptures, immediately the clotting mechanism is initiated at the site of rupture. And the blood clot is formed, and within a matter of few hours, this blood clot completely occludes the artery, which was about only 50 or 60% blocked and was not allowing any symptoms to develop. Now, such a patient who had no symptoms, no detection of any disease even after the health checkup, and yes, he dies suddenly. This is the mechanism. So now what is the answer to this question? How do I pick up the people who have a soft block?
Do you advise that people in their 40s and 50s slow down on cardio?
I would say that don't enter into a competitive. The exercises should be performed for a fitness level. You don't want to become a boxer, you don't want to become a wrestler, you don't want to become a high-grade sportsman. Therefore, don't go to a point which exhausts you, tires you. Don't do that. Don't overdo.
So the confusion is to pick up who is at high risk when they're young, when they don't actually show signs of it.
Because we still do not have a very simple test which can tell me, you are at a high risk of sudden cardiac death. We don't have that
So
symptom.
we don't have okay. Only if someone has a high genetic predisposition, let's say.
We watch
or
them
have-
we watch them more closely.
Or have other lifestyle diseases like diabetes and hypertension, you would watch them
We will
closely.
watch them
but
more
if
closely.
they don't have those kind of factors,
Yes.
you don't watch people like that closely.
Yeah, it's not naturally, no.
Yeah. Can you, is it true that till you have an 80% blockage, very often there are no symptoms or you don't feel
No,
symptomatic?
it does happen. It does happen
Yeah.
that the people who have severe blockage may not have symptoms apparently. But there are occasional patients who, despite 80% block, may not have symptoms for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, diabetic patients have a less sensitivity to pain.
Okay.
So they may not report in time, and they don't want to get that warning bell that something is wrong with my chest hurts while I walk fast. That is one situation. And sometimes 80% block is compensated in the body by collateral circulation. The blood vessels from the neighboring area, they come and they cover up that area which is suffering from deficiency of blood supply. So in that case, it can happen.
Also, with patients that you've treated in terms of attacks, what would you say the top 3 factors have been? Has it been diabetes, hypertension, stress, unexplained?
You mean, how many marks would I give to each factor?
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think family history number 1, smoking number 2, and hypertension number 3.
Hypertension number 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what would you recommend to keep heart health?
It's a summary of your lifestyle. Do not consider the risk factor control as a part of treatment. It's the way of life. Adopt that principle, adopt that mindset that this is the way I have to live. Elephants don't eat non-veg food, and the tiger does not eat grass.
So, you recommend vegetarianism.
So therefore,
But healthy vegetarianism.
You're right.
Vegetables, nuts, fruits.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
excess dairy,
Yes.
potato,
and
maida.
see, yeah, by and large, generally, be moderate
Okay.
in everything, including, and the most important thing, which I think is prevailing and is to an extent not even preventable, is the stress. The whole life has become so different as compared to 200 or 300 years ago that we have, or why 200 years ago, about 50 years ago, that the stress is predominantly pervaded all status of the society.
So you're saying that also includes something like yoga, meditation, to bring anything that helps in bringing down stress.
So that leads to another good concept, Devna. Okay, health is not just absence of disease. The health is one where most optimal work output can be developed and generated from each and every organ of the body.
Yeah. So you're
So that
saying,
you can fight when you are not well.
yeah. So you're saying also keep your organs healthy. So if
Yes.
you have a thyroid issue,
Yes.
treat it. If you have diabetes, treat it. Because all that can put pressure on the heart.
Yeah.
All these external factors.
Yeah. Be very finicky about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be very, very regular with checks.
True.
Okay. How do you keep yourself so fit and healthy? Tell us your
okay.
secrets, doctor. I can't believe you're almost 85.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, to an extent, it's constitutional. My dad lived up to the age of 90. My boas, all of them crossed 80 in those days. So to a large extent, it's genetic. And to a small extent, now that I'm a cardiologist and then also a doctor, I have very easy control over all my risk factors. It's easy for me because I have seen people paying heavy price for crossing the limits. So that's one of
Right.
that.
So you
and
say-
I give a lot of credit to my wife too, who has been always careful that I'm thus far and no more. That kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like.
Yes,
she's-
absolutely.
Yeah.
She keeps a good sort of discipline.
Very supportive.
And you eat one meal a day?
Yes, I eat 1 meal a day.
When do you eat that meal?
About 1:30, 2 o'clock.
That's it. And what about before and after?
Very little. Once in a while, I have some tea, coffee, sandwiches, etc.
So
But-
you sustain on one meal a day, doctor. Do you feel it
Yes.
keeps you energized?
Yes.
Feeling
And you
light?
know what? there are people, like I've seen people, Morarji Desai, whom I treated, he was 98. And when I saw his food, very frugal, he hardly ate. You feel as if, how does he maintain himself? But you don't need a lot of food. To sustain yourself, you don't need. We most of us overeat.
You've treated Dhirubhai Ambani, several politicians. Any memorable stories for us?
At the cost of being a little bit conceited, not at the cost of being
I think
maybe
you've earned it, doctor.
Huh?
You can be a little conceited. You've earned it.
Oh, okay. I've treated 7 Bharat Ratnas and 4 Prime Ministers in my career.
Seeing what robotics will do in the next year or two in surgery.
I do anticipate that it will penetrate the surgical treatment a lot. And robots have a very long fingers so that they can go deep down in the abdomen and operate those areas which are not very easily accessible to a human fingers and the surgeon.
Yes.
So by the use of robo, they can certainly accomplish a lot more than what they've been doing now.
Describe yourself as a doctor and human being, and give me 2 adjectives that would describe your journey as a doctor, as a person.
Which would, I think, compassion and competence.
That describes you, and that would describe any great doctor.
It should. And these are the essence of a good doctor. Compassion. I cannot imagine a doctor without compassion.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine a doctor without competence.
Thank you so
Very
much.
good.
This has been such an honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.